But all right, so we are recording this webinar, and I'm really excited to be with all of you today for a webinar on a topic that I just love chatting about, which is using emojis with students in Book Creator. So I know as folks were settling in to the webinar, those of you who are joining us live today, we're saying hello and sharing on where you're from. So excited to have so many folks from so many different time zones and spots and places with us today. If we haven't met before, my name is Monica Burns. I'll share a little bit about my background in a moment, but I do want you to know that this is being recorded. The folks at Book Creator are so wonderful about posting live events like this on their YouTube channel. So please know that if you have to step out early or you like what you hear, you want to play it again or share it with a colleague, that this will go up on their YouTube channel sooner than later, so you'll be able to find it. So welcome everyone. Today we're going to talk about this concept of emojis in Book Creator. As I mentioned, my name is Monica Burns. I'm a former New York City public school teacher. I've been out of the classroom for a couple years, just a couple miles now from New York City here in New Jersey. I'm a Book Creator ambassador, use Book Creator with students when I get a chance to spend time in classrooms. I'm out of the classroom leading professional development, more virtual the past month or so, and special events like these ones. So if you are on Instagram or Twitter, you might have seen me sharing this event right before. I was telling John from Book Creator, who's on the call, that I was snapping some pictures and posting on Instagram about how we have our webinar together today. So if you are using social media and you're snapping pictures or sharing things or have great ideas to take away from today, feel free to tag me, tag the folks in Book Creator, let us know what you're excited about. So today we are going to talk about some of the remote learning resources from Book Creator. As we're recording this in the first week of April, we of course are dealing with a very serious public health crisis. If you're watching the recording of this, that may not be front of mind for you in the future when you're watching this, but for all of us here today together during this time, it absolutely is front of mind. So I'll start off sharing a couple of the remote learning resources from Book Creator that you may want to reference or review or explore. We'll do a quick overview of Book Creator and talk about the what and the why of emojis, why we are thinking of emojis today, why I care about emojis and want to make sure that you know how to access them and use them. And we'll talk about some project ideas for using emojis as well. We'll have time at the end. I'll make sure to finish up a little bit early so that we have time for Q&A. And if there's any very Book Creator specific questions that I can't answer, John from Book Creator is here, so he'll make sure to get you the information if I cannot. And of course, you have that chat screen. I have it up on my screen right now. So that way, if something comes in, I can make sure to pause or take a peek at that and make sure that I'm answering any of your questions, those of you joining us live today. So I'd love to hear a little bit about you all who are joining us. We got to hear a little bit about where you're joining from all over the world today. But how familiar are you with Book Creator? If you can take a moment in that chat box and just share, I am super duper familiar with Book Creator. I use it all the time with students. I've been using it for years. I'm brand new to Book Creator. It's a new tool that I'm excited to learn more about. Take a moment and share with us just a little bit about your background. It'll help me today make sure I'm pointing you towards relevant resources, whether you are a pro and just excited to learn more about the emoji component, or if Book Creator is totally new to you, I want to make sure to point you in the direction of relevant and useful resources. So I love that we've got a nice mix as I'm looking at the chat here. So folks who are pretty new, maybe heard a little bit about Book Creator, are a total pro, have been using it for a year or more, using it often in different languages as well, something that you're familiar with, even if you aren't a pro with it. So this is great to know, because I'm going to start off today giving you just a quick overview of what Book Creator is and some of the core features. If I'm moving a little fast in terms of demoing or showing things off, since we're focused on emojis today, please know that John is doing a whole bunch of webinars, and there's other folks doing webinars too that are more of a getting started. And you, of course, can go to Book Creator's YouTube channel to watch some recordings for getting started. So if at any point I'm moving a little quick through some of the core features, you can already see there in the chat. We'll make sure to point you to resources for folks who are totally new to this. That way you have everything you need to jump in. So let's start off by talking first about some of the remote learning resources that are important to note. There are lots of ebooks from the team at Book Creator. I'm going to point to one while we are together here on the call that's specifically around emojis, but there's plenty of them. As part of the remote learning resources, and you'll see that support for schools link in the chat already. You can have an extended version of collaboration. So if that's usually a paid feature, but now you can access it for free. There's lots of webinars that you can access. And before we jump into emojis, I'm also going to clarify something about a workflow. That's just important to note if you are supporting students who are learning from home over the next few months. So just a quick overview of Book Creator. It is an open-ended creation tool that you can use on iOS, you can use on Chromebooks, you could use on any web browser. Today, I am on my MacBook, and I will show you some of these project ideas and emoji features on the Chrome web browser of my MacBook. So you can use it in lots of different environments. It is something that both students and teachers can use to create and publish books. So even though you'll see me make a book with more of a teacher hat on today, your kids, of course, can use all these features and create their books. And we'll talk about that workflow as we go through. Book Creator is super simple. It's really straightforward. It allows you to make interactive pages with voice and text and video and images, emojis, and more. So we'll look at all of those together today. It's something that students of all ages can really use. And so when we talk about emojis, sometimes we think of that as being something high school or middle schoolers might use like in a text message, or younger students might use because there are the image component to it. Right, we're going to look at a wide range of activities today that I think will convince you that emojis have a place for all of our learners as well. Now, teachers can create libraries for students. That's what we're going to take a peek at first together as we get ready to jump into emojis. And so no matter what your kids are making, whether it's digital portfolios, poetry books, step-by-step guides, you name it, there's lots of ways to use this open-ended creation tool and really make it your own. So a couple things to consider as we get ready to talk about emojis specifically is that Book Creator outside of the classroom is going to feel a little different than Book Creator inside of the classroom. So you're going to want to make sure that you're not just sending the Book Creator link to kids and having them sign up on their own and make a book, but that you are setting up a teacher account. You are then sharing your special library code, which we'll look at in a moment, with families so that they know that they can log in either with a QR code or with an email, join your library, and then you can check in and take a look at student books. Now, throughout the past few weeks, I've been spending a lot of time virtually connecting with educators like yourselves on the webinar today. And I do want to make sure that I have a clear note and acknowledgement before we jump in that access and priorities for families, right, as they're dealing with our current public health crisis are varied, and it may be very clear to you or it might not be that clear to you. If you're already jumping into this idea of remote learning with your students and families, you already know, right? Some things may be really high on a family's list. They may have a lot of access to resources. They may have a lot of time to support their students, or they may be really focused on making sure that their financial state and their health state is up to par to keep everyone in check, right? So you'll just want to take that into consideration when you're positioning this resource as something valuable for families, when you're sharing ideas and expectations and supporting families, all things to think about when we talk about these ideas together today. So a couple screenshots and then we'll go out live so you can see it in action. The way that I'm going to suggest that you would support students with creating emojis, emoji themed kind of books like we'll look at today, or any type of book creator book while they're at home, is to go to app.bookcreator.com. You are welcome to join me there on that website as I'm taking you through our demo and our project ideas today. When you get there, students will see a special spot for them to sign in, but you'll want to click on the teacher sign in. This is where you, if you don't have one already, would create an account or sign into your account. Then you would create a library that you would invite students into. That's when they go to the student login and they sign in. They'll be prompted, hey, what's your teacher's library code? And they will get the code that you have given them by clicking on this invite code. So I'm going to take you out and show you what this looks like. I'm already signed in at Book Creator's website. And so I'm now going to go to my library. So you can see it, I've got a whole bunch. You would create a new library here, or if you're signing in for the first time, it'll prompt you for a new library, or maybe you made one already playing around with this tool. Then you would jump in and you would, at the very top of your screen, find the invite code and share this code with students. So this way, when you are telling families, we are going to make books, I can't wait to show you this tool, you would tell them to go to that app.bookcreator.com, have their students sign in whatever way they've been signing into stuff throughout the school year. And then when they sign in, they'll be prompted to add in that code that is unique to you. So that's the steps that you'll take to set up a new library. I want to watch you go through and kind of take a look at this as well. So if I've created my new library, I'm in here and I'm going to go ahead and grab that invite code. So if you want to sign in while we're talking about these pieces today, go ahead and head over to app.bookcreator.com. It'll give you a space to sign in and go through those steps. And as I mentioned, there's all those getting started pieces for you if you are brand new to this as well. So I'm going to go ahead and talk to you today about our emoji piece. Now there's lots of free ebooks that you can access from the folks at Book Creator, and I helped them put together this free ebook that'll be the basis of our conversation today, all about using emojis in the classroom. So this is one of their free ebooks, and we're going to break down some of the activities and take a look at all of them together today. So when we talk about using emojis in the classroom, and you'll see this inside the Using Emojis in the Classroom book, which we'll share a link for you as well, emojis are something that are seen in lots of different places. You can access emojis from a keyboard, depending on the device you're using. You can use a tool like emojicopy.com, which I'll show you in a moment, which lets you grab emojis and pull them in. And this is something where we see emojis in lots of different places, and they really are the type of images that you can use to represent information. I included some fun facts here on this page about some of the places that emojis first appeared, things that you can learn about emojis. And I've also included some links, right? So you see in that big yellow heart right here, a wired guide to emoji, which will give you some of these fun facts and history, which is always nice to share with students if you're talking about emojis. When we talk about emojis in the classroom, however, it's not just a kind of fun, flashy, engaging thing, although that's part of it. There's a lot of ways you can use emojis with a purpose, right? It's more than just fun, although fun is great. It allows students to represent their thinking visually. And so we're going to look today at some math examples, some social studies examples, some ELA examples, some SEL examples too, right? So you might use emojis as a teacher if you're creating anchor charts with visuals, giving students directions and you want an emoji to go along with it, if you're organizing information for them. So lots of ways that you might use emojis. Now, I'd love to hear from you in the chat if you're with us live today, if you've used emojis before with students, how you've used emojis, if there's any activity ideas that you love. That's a space where you're welcome to share any of your ideas or your thoughts or things about emojis, and I'll make sure to check in and give some shout outs as we're going through this overview. So inside of Book Creator, there is an easy way to access the emojis that are now built into this tool that I'm going to use when we talk about it together today. So when we're inside Book Creator, there isn't an emoji button. It's actually behind the pen tool. So the same place you would go to draw, you can go ahead and find emojis. And I love hearing that this is something in the chat, and you should be able to see what some of the other folks have said too, right? This is something where you may use emojis for reflections or even for grading or feedback, right? So lots of things that you can do. So if you are going to add emojis, you'll grab them from the pen tool, and then you'll see that there's an emoji button at the top, and you can pull in different emojis. So we're gonna go ahead and take a look at this inside of Book Creator. If you do want to find emojis and add emojis to your page, I'm going to encourage you to play along and try it out as I'm going through with you. So I am back here in Book Creator. I can create a new book. I often show you when I'm doing a webinar this in landscape, but there's no right way to do it. I just like using landscape on a day like today because I can fill up the whole screen with a Book Creator page. Now, when I am inside of here, and I'm just going to move some of my Zoom windows around a bit, I'm going to go to the plus sign, and this is where I'm going to access my emojis. So if you are doing double duty today of watching the webinar and playing along on Book Creator, you're going to create your book, hit the plus sign, and go to the pen tool. Now there's lots of great stuff in here, right? The illustration, the auto draw, erasing, filling in shapes, but the emojis are what we're focused on for today. Now up at the top here, you can go ahead and go through category by category. It's the same set of universal emojis that you will see on any emoji tool. So if I toggled over to a new window here, you can see I'm at emojicopy.com, all the same emojis, right, that are universal emojis you'd find here. So I want to share with you a couple tips and strategies for adding emojis to your page in Book Creator, and then we'll go into some specific activity ideas. If your wheels are spinning about a way that you might use emojis within Book Creator, feel free to put it there in the chat box as well. I'll give some shout outs to things that people are sharing along the way this afternoon. So I'm here inside of the book. And inside of my page, I hit the pen tool and I've accessed emojis. Now I can go ahead and grab any emoji that I want, and I can add it here to my page. So let's go ahead and grab a smiley face emoji, and I'm gonna place it right here. Maybe I'll go in here and I'll go to the food one and I'll put in a watermelon and add it here. Now, when I'm in this mode, right, and I've added one to my page here, I can go ahead and hit done. And what this is gonna do is any of the emojis that I've grabbed here, it's gonna group them together and I can place them on the page. I can resize them. I can even spin them around. So I go to the plus sign, pen tool, hit the emoji, and I can add them to the page. So when I'm in this mode of adding emojis through the pen tool, when I start adding them to my page, it becomes one element, like one group of emojis together. So if I wanted more flexibility, I might add one at a time, and that way I can move them around in different ways. Totally up to you. Now, if you want to go into the search emoji, I can type in something like pizza and it will automatically pull this emoji. I can, of course, resize it and move it around in here. And then when I hit done, it will pop back here. So this is where you'll find, right, the ability to move them around. This one I added just one by one. This I added together, so they're grouped together on the page. Now, when I'm in the plus sign, pen tool, emoji here, and I'm searching for an emoji, whether using a keyword search or just by going category by category, right, I have an opportunity to add as many as I want to the page. One thing that you may want to think about, and that's why I love this search bar up here, is that if you type in something, it'll pop up with some different emojis that fall into that keyword or category. This is a great way to bring in some vocabulary work with your students, some problem solving, as they're looking for a visual representation of a particular emoji. So this provides a couple different avenues as they are problem solving, as they're thinking about which emojis to add to their page. Now, I am no longer in the classroom as a full-time classroom teacher, but I visit a lot of classrooms and spend time side by side coaching and working with teachers. And so just earlier this spring, or I should say I guess winter time, so probably thinking back more towards February at this point, I was working with a group of awesome fourth graders who were inside of this tool. We were doing all about me books, right? They were talking about themselves. And when we were presenting this to them and showing them the emojis and encouraging them to have these visual representations on the page, right, we had a conversation about keyword searches, about visuals, about how much is too much, right? Or placing emphasis on just a few. So you can really go a long way with pulling these in and pulling these together. Now, if you have an emoji like this and you want to do more than one, you can go to copy and you can go paste, right? And that'll paste it right over here. And so this is essentially how you're going to access emojis and add them in here. Now, one thing that you could do is if you hit the plus sign and you hit text and you're typing in the title or your name on a page, and you do have emojis built into your keyboard, you could add them in here, or you could go to this emoji copy.com. Maybe I'm going to add in one here, copy it from the bottom, and then of course I could paste it in right there and add it there as well. And if I go to my inspector button and I change the size of the font, it'll also make that emoji get larger. So you've got a couple different options. I typically go in with the plus sign, pen tool, emoji, search and find the emojis that I want and add them to the page. So that gives you a sense of how you can add these. What I'm going to do now is take you out to a couple project ideas, and then we'll go back out and take a look at it live and in action. I definitely encourage you to try this out, to find some emojis and add them to your page just like I did. That way, if you come across any issues or you have any questions, you'll be able to ask right here while we're live. And I did see a question come in about access to the webinar. This is going to be recorded, so it's not the slide deck, it'll just be the recording. So you'll be able to see everything, and that folks at Book Creator are great about posting that up on their YouTube channel. So let's talk about some different activity ideas. Remember, you can find these pages that I'm sharing with you in the Using Emojis in the Classroom ebook I created for the folks at Book Creator. The first one I want to share with you is an ELA example of using emojis to retell a story. Now, in this case, you might, with a group of kindergartners or first graders, right, have a conversation about a story together, read a story together, and then talk about what pictures would go along with a first, then, next, finally. With middle school or high school students, you might have them retell or summarize, right, an article that they've read with a couple images, right, those visual representations from their emojis, and maybe brainstorm or talk with someone else that they are going to work with and think about what type of visual representation. So this is a English language arts type of activity for reading and writing, right? But you could really make this your own. I've included this activity sequence of what it might look like in action, but let's take a look at an example. So imagine your students are reading something like The Tortoise and the Hare. Maybe you've done this whole class and you're chunking down the retell of the story. What happened first? What happened then? What happened next? What happened finally? And here are just 6 emojis that show the start of the race, the hare, the tortoise behind them, the race is happening, right? Someone won the race. Who was it? It was the tortoise. Now, these visual representations, these emojis definitely tell a story, right? But it's not going to give you everything. So you can add, using the record button at the bottom here, a piece of narration so that your students can give a summary that explains their thinking. So that if you are, or a classmate of theirs is looking at their emoji retell and kind of puzzled, like, why did they choose that? Maybe it's not super obvious to you, right? When you hear that child give their summary, right, they are then going to, right, tell you something that is a little bit more like, oh, okay, that's what they were getting at. And you have that as an option. So to revisit what this would look like, I'm going to go ahead and make a new page for us here. So I'm going to hit the arrow, make a new page. You could go ahead and add the text at the top. So you could write the tortoise and the hare, add that here. For this one, you can go to the inspector button, make it a little bit larger, change the font if you want to, right? Change the background color. I think that one was green, right? And stretch it out here. Then you could go to your plus sign and the pen tool to emojis, and you could type in something like race. I don't love those, but maybe we could do flag. And here's a good racing flag. We could position this right here. Then we could go to our emoji and we could put the rabbit. I don't know if hair will pop up, but there's a rabbit, right? And then we'll go to the emoji button and we can put in turtle. So if your kids are thinking there's no tortoise when they type in tortoise, right, here's an opportunity for them to brainstorm different keywords, problem solve. And of course, your kids could do this on their own, but if they're working side by side with a classmate, if you're in the classroom, or they're working with a family member, they can have some really great conversations. And then let's go ahead and just say winner. Nothing pops up, but what about medal? Here we go. So we'll put a medal right here. So here you can have the visual representation. Then if you go to the plus sign and hit record, let's start recording and we can summarize. So in the story, the tortoise and the hare, blah, 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 you get where I'm going. We'll hit the stop button there. It'll add this to the page. And so you can have the recording that goes along with it. So you can make this your own when you're adding these. So to get there, you would go to the plus sign. You would go ahead and add this content. And if there's anything you want to inspect, right, like you want to change the font or the sizing, you go to the inspector button up here. You just have to have it highlighted in blue in order for it to know what you want to inspect and change at. So that's an ELA example, a pretty straightforward one with a familiar story, but your kids might read a USA Today, a Newsella, a New York Times article, and summarize this way, or in addition to summarizing or retelling a story, that is something that would be shared in a whole group. Let's keep going and take a look at a social studies example. With this example, we're thinking of historical tweets. Now, if your kids are sharing on social media or they send messages or have played with emojis before, they know that there's definitely a social component for adding emojis onto their kind of social sharing, whether it's a message to a grandparent or something they're posting on Instagram, right? So here's an opportunity for students to read and learn about a figure in history and then craft some sample tweets or maybe sample Instagram posts or whatever feels good, and choose just a few emojis that really connect to that message they want to get across. So here's an example of tweets that could be from Bessie Coleman, right? Absolutely not actual tweets that she's written, but this idea that we are having students create something that uses some of the ways we communicate today to illustrate what they learned or know about someone. So here you can see that here is someone who's been learning, right? So there's lots of books in here. Here's one that talks about a school of aviation. So you got our airplane right there. And then talking about how she was the very first with a one next to it. So an example of what you might do from a social studies perspective. These are added in through the text option, right, as opposed to adding in through the emoji option. So lots of flexibility with what this could look like. Now, in a science classroom, but of course you could use infographics in other places too, an infographic is a great way to have students visualize their research and create something that shows off what they've learned, right, through a medium that is very popular, that is one that they may have seen themselves as readers and consumers. So an infographic presents information with visuals to show off key points. So you might have students conduct their own research or read research about something and then organize that research into a visual format that uses emojis to represent core information. Let's talk about what this could look like. Here's a did you know page, an infographic, right, or bulleted information all about sharks. And so there's one big emoji on this page with a big shark, and then there's 3 smaller emojis that represent the type of research or stats or information on the page. So there are over 400 species of sharks. So you have the list one. Sharks live in every ocean. So you have the big wave. A shark can have up to 30,000 teeth in its lifetime. So you have a big tooth. And then, of course, the big shark emoji. So just like I had on the first page, you can add things in different shapes, different emojis in different sizes. So let's go ahead and recreate what this looks like. So I'm going to go to my inspector button first this time. I can choose any background here. I could choose a color for the background, right? So I've got lots of options. We'll choose something blue if we're talking about sharks. I'm going to go to the plus sign here and to my text tool, and I'm going to write facts about sharks and add that here. Remember, when this is in blue, when I've tapped on it, I can then go to the inspector button. I can change the color if I want to. I can change the font if I want to. I can make this larger if I want to, and then I can stretch it out here on the page. So let's go back to our emoji now, right? Our plus sign, our text tool, our plus sign, our pen tool, and emojis here. And we're going to type in shark. There we go. And so remember how this one, we can make it really big from this view if we want to. But of course, when we pop back out here, we can make it smaller. So for the one that we looked at before, right, we had our facts about the shark's teeth and where they live, right? So let's go to the plus sign and go to the pen tool and emoji again. Let's type in teeth. Oop, how about tooth? There we go. Some problem solving. And so we're going to add that right here. Then let's go to emoji again, and maybe this one will be the wave for the ocean, and we can add that right below. And maybe we'll also add, we'll stick with these 2 for now. And so you see here, I'm gonna go to my undo. That once I've got my emoji here, right, it'll bring me back to my pen tool. So I like these in position. I'm gonna hit done. And now what's great about doing it this way is these 2 are grouped together. So I can resize them and make them larger or smaller if I want to. And here's where I could maybe add my facts as a recording, or I could add my facts as text. Now, if you haven't seen this before, this is the voice to text, so it's a good combo if you're using emojis for visual. So let's try it out together. Sharks live in every ocean. Awesome. So let's go ahead and add that here, and I can line that up here. And you'll see this is another way to set up the information like you see in this infographic. If you've used infographics with your students, you are welcome to share that in here. You aren't able to give kids just a couple emoji choices. I saw a question come in about that. If you are a little concerned about them spending all their time searching for emojis, right? One strategy that I've used with students in the past is that I've said you're going to choose just 2 emojis to represent your thinking. Right, so that's something that you would have them do, right? Just choose 2 emojis. If you're worried about just the poop emoji all the time, right? You might want to come out in front and say you're going to choose one emoji that's food, one emoji that is a hand wave or something, right? And just give them a little bit direction. So for this particular slide, I created this example in Book Creator similar to the one I just shared with you, except that the font was a little bit different than the ones I chose. And instead of doing a border, I did the whole background. Let's keep going and look at a math example. So in the math classroom, word problems, having kids create word problems and answer word problems and represent their thinking is so important. So in this using emojis in the classroom book that I created for Book Creator, you'll see some examples in there. Here's another one. So you might have students write their own math problem or put in a math problem that you are going to have them solve, and then they can use emojis to represent the steps of a problem. So here the emojis are just the 1, the 2, and the 3 emoji. Then kids have used the pen tool, right? They can write in and they can put in the steps that they want to solve. So in the math classroom, you might have students represent the steps they use to solve a math problem, or maybe even tell a story with emojis that go along with the word problem as well. So lots of ways to really make this your own. As we keep thinking about some activity ideas, you might also use emojis with social emotional learning front and center. So that might be front of mind for you. So when you are thinking about having kids rate an experience, share their feelings, or respond to a prompt, emojis might feel a little bit more safe or comfortable for them to share their feelings, or might be part of the equation of what you're asking them to do. So this example shows what it would look like to have students capture their feelings. So in this case, they're saying, this morning I felt this way, at lunchtime I felt this way, this afternoon I felt that way, right? So you might not do this every day, but maybe it's something where students track how they're feeling over the course of the day, especially if they're having a really tough day, or you know that they're struggling with something. You might also have them do this once a week or once every day. If you are supporting students right now who are working from home, who are maybe having a lot of feelings about some of the things that are going on in the world, this is also a great way for them to track that. You might have them set it up so they put a different emoji for each day of the week that shows how they feel. There's lots of ways to make this your own. I'm going to take you out and show you an example, but I've got that chat box open. So if you are thinking of ways you might use emojis with students to have them capture their feelings or talk about something that's more of a social emotional learning bend, you're welcome to add it in the chat and I'll give you some shout outs as we're going through. So I'm going to add a new page here. I'm going to change the background. Let's go ahead and choose this one with the pencils. I love this one. It's all here and options for you to pull into your book creator creation. And so for that feelings journal, this one we're going to look at for more of a weekly. So I'm going to go ahead to the text and I'm going to put how I'm feeling this week. And we'll go ahead and hit done. I like to make the text a little bit larger here. Let's go ahead and increase the size, and then I'm going to just stretch this out, put this up here. I think I want this to be a little bit smaller, so it just goes across the page, so I can go ahead and make that like this. And I'm actually going to change the background. Maybe we'll make this yellow and add that here. Awesome. So you might have students use emojis to capture their feelings over the course of the week. They can put in for a Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You might have them set this up the week before or on a Monday morning, or show them a screenshot and share this example and have them really make it their own. So if you have families that are reaching out to you and maybe their kids are having a really hard time being home and away from school, this might be a tracker that they do as a family inside of a book in the book creator library. Absolutely great for kids who are reflecting and monitoring their feelings, regardless of what their normal day-to-day might be like. This might be good for them in just this moment or all the time. So I'm going to use the text tool here, and I'm just going to put in our M, our T, our W, our TH, and our F. I'm going to put in an extra space in between these to kind of spread them out, and you'll see why in just a second. Let's go ahead here. There we go. And then I'm going to hit done. So now I've got this here, but I want to make it a little bit bigger again. So my inspector, kind of stretch these out down the page so that there's one for each of them here. Great. And then students can go in and open this up every day of the week and add their emoji. So we'll go again to our pen tool, emoji here. And then if they're having a day where they're feeling a little bit down and out, they're not feeling well, they're feeling sad or concerned, they can choose one of these emojis that represents their feelings. You can put in keywords here, but I would suggest that have kids choose the one that resonates with them the most, and then maybe they talk a little bit about it, or maybe they don't talk a little bit about their feelings, right? So really up to you how you format this or suggest this to someone. So if someone is really having a hard day, or they're just not feeling good or wishing someone would leave them alone, they might choose this one. and then they can shrink it and put it underneath the Monday. And then when they come back to this, they can add other emojis over the course of the week. Now, anytime you have kids journaling or sharing in this kind of way, right, of course you want to make sure that you have some norms and expectations, but emojis are a really great way for kids to summarize, right? They put a lot into their choice, right, when they choose an emoji, and especially if they're just choosing one to represent how they're feeling. So you might decide to have them add in some text. Maybe they do a page for each day of the week as opposed to one page for every day, or even record their voice or take a selfie or talk into the camera, right? So there's a lot of options for how you could set something like this up. So I'd love to hear from you before we talk about some resources and take any extra questions. How could you use emojis with students? I gave you some different content area ideas and shared some examples, but what comes to mind for you? How could you use emojis with your kids? And I'll give some shout outs as I'm peeking at the chat box there. And of course, you can add in any questions to the chat or the Q&A, and I'll make sure to get to those as we get ready to finish up. So I love, Christina, you shared that you like the idea of retelling a story idea. So this is definitely something that you can do, right? So you might let kids choose their own book, right? And use this as a way to share a scene from a novel, right? Or a chapter, or you might share a read aloud and have them summarize some of the key ideas. For first graders, that would be a great one for them to do, right? Definitely something that you might decide to bring in as well. Awesome. So before we get to some and I just saw another one. Yeah. Julie mentioned about using this in place of Google Images. You're right that Google Images searches can be kind of overwhelming for kids. Emojis are something that they might be familiar with already. So this gives you an opportunity to have them in a space that might feel a little bit more controlled. You can also have this with someone, with students who you're working on vocabulary on a foreign language. So awesome, Lynn. And Sandra mentioned about writing narrative stories. This is a great way for them to do this as well. If you are using emojis from someplace else, so Lauren asked a question about that. So if you are, say, using emojis from another source like emojicopy.com, you would add that emoji. You see it comes down here at the bottom, and then you hit the copy button, and then you're able to add that in. But you'd want to add it in when you go to plus sign and text, and that's how you would add it there as well. So let's finish up before we get into our Q&A. I want to point you to a couple resources that I think will be helpful. There is a fantastic Facebook group for book creator teachers. I know I am in it and love seeing what other people are interested and excited about. The folks at Book Creator also have a free newsletter and a support page. And there are pieces that are available for you that are free ebooks as well. So this is something where you might decide that you want to search through some activity ideas. Of course, when you grab these ebooks, you'll also find the emoji book. So if I come back here to Book Creator, I go to My Books, and I go into library and I hit resources, you'll see that there are all books down here covering all different topics. You can see all of the Book Creator books here. And if you follow along on Book Creator's blog, they share all the new resources. I know John just put in the link for the support page, and the Facebook group you can find here too. So if you're logged in and you find libraries, you go to resources and you find all of this here as well. Now, I saw a couple of questions come in that I want to make sure that I answer. I saw a question come in about using Book Creator for the first time in distance learning. So if you have never used Book Creator with students before, I would suggest that if you're introducing it to them for the first time, you bring families on board. You might share with them a step-by-step for getting started. I think this tool is pretty doable for getting started for the first time. However, right, just with anything new, especially if families are feeling overwhelmed, you just want to give them a lot of grace and space, right, as they're trying something new. So if you see that they're struggling, make sure they understand that it's not a big deal, right, if they aren't able to do something or complete something, or you might decide that you give some extra time to support people or are around for them to ask questions as well. So just something to consider. Now, I do want to make sure that you know that the folks at Book Creator are hosting so many awesome webinars. I'm joining them on Wednesdays for the rest of April and the beginning of May, and there are a couple more coming up on Wednesdays and Aprils with me, including next week where we talk about digital citizenship, then Book Creator and reading responses, and collaboration within Book Creator. So if you have any interest in that, all you have to do is go to bookcreator.com/webinars. And I know John put in there the link for all of the webinars. So if you are interested in doing a getting started with Book Creator webinar, that's somewhere to head to as well. So thank you all so much for joining today. If you have more questions, you are welcome to reach out to me or the team at Book Creator. And then you are, if you have questions, and we'll make sure to get you answers to them. So thank you all so much for joining. I'm going to go ahead and stop the recording. And if you want to watch this, of course, you can check it out on Book Creator's YouTube channel with all of their other great stuff. We'll make sure to send you the recording for this as well.